The problem with indie devs is there's so damn many of them that unless you have like the computer Cerebro from the X-Men, there's really no way to know when one of them has merged the proverbial peanut butter and chocolate. Part tower defense, part twin stick shooter. Is it a match made in heaven or an unholy fusion? Let's find out. Welcome YouTube friends to my look at the Riftbreaker Prologue. This game is the first I've heard of Exor Studios, but they got a few games on Steam and they seem to be well received overall. Since downloading the Prologue here, I have gone back and played X-Morph Defense, and I enjoyed that immensely. Might make a video on it, we'll see. Riftbreaker first came onto my radar in kind of a weird, stupid way. I was looking at games that supported a chroma profile for my keyboard and spotted a giant mech. I was interested, so I looked up the Steam page, and here we are. I always had an interesting relationship with RTSs and base building games. I love them, but honestly, I kinda suck at them. You'll see in the footage that I've recorded here that I try to expand, but I end up leaving the entire southern approach to my HQ unwalled. I'll try to scramble at the end, but it's too little too late. The game does a more than adequate job of introducing you to the base building elements and giving you a feel of what you need to do, but you know that kid who made a banner for class or tried to decorate a birthday cake themselves and they always had the big ass happy and, you know, a slightly smaller BIRTH, and then day was just sort of written tiny, as you could tell that he just panicked as they ran out of space? Yeah, I was that kid. Still am in a lot of ways, and I think that's why I struggle to build a good base. I lack the foresight. I mention this because I'm curious how the main game will focus on players that prefer different elements to the game. Are you more of a peanut butter lover or a chocolate enthusiast? The base building is fun and intuitive. I don't want you to think otherwise, but what really drew me in was the shooter portion. Laying waste into a bunch of smaller aliens with the flame unit was very satisfying. The machine gun was kind of the middle of the road and seemed to handle the medium-ranged enemies well, and I reserved the missiles for the big bugs or the hives. Hopefully the research system that I see showcased briefly will allow me to shore up my personal weaknesses and enjoy the parts of the game that really shine for me. Either way, the game is undeniably fun. Before we get into the graphics and a performance thing that I noticed, I'd like to invite all the newbies here to, hey, maybe subscribe. It feeds my fragile ego and I love posting weekly videos. I have nothing but good things to say about the visuals. The protagonist mech looks very cool. The different weapon effects also seem very distinct to the point where I wasn't even really looking at what I had equipped. I could just tell by the effects on the screen. The flamethrower, as I mentioned, was my favorite. It's useful on all the little small aliens, most common in the prologue, and it's also insanely satisfying to use. Setting the horde and surrounding foliage on fire never got old for me. I did have a few frame drops, but between the full screen inferno and the fact I was recording, I'd file that hiccup under the understandable category, even for a final release, let alone a beta. I'm incredibly interested to see how we're allowed to tackle the task of setting up the gate back to Earth in the final game, which is sort of the point that I've gathered. I think it'd be cool if we get to select our path through the different biomes, especially if our research is persistent through each level. I mentioned this as sort of a tie-in to what I mentioned earlier. If there's a specific order of ramping up difficulty, then I'll probably just have to get good, as they say. The base building isn't overly complicated after all. But if we are allowed great freedom, I think I'll have an absolute blast setting up a minimalist base while I go out looking for bugs to burn. Either way, I'm looking forward to fall 2021, and I'm looking forward to it just a little bit more thanks to Exor Studios and Riftbreaker here. Until next time, I've been Septimus of the Grim Alliance, and you have all been an amazing audience. I thank you.